Welcome back, everybody.
How you doing, everybody?
It's good to see you. How was everybody's Halloween?
Eventful, quiet, spooky.
Ours was pretty quiet.
Right. No trick-or-treaters.
It's so weird. And I mean, the weather wasn't great either. It was really windy.
But is it ever?
Well, sometimes it has been.
True.
I remember having good days, like sunny, like still days where you could actually like walk around in a costume without it blowing away.
Right. But those are few and far between.
Yeah, I know. But we hope you guys all had fun on your Halloweens, and we hope you enjoyed the decoration video that we did prior to this one. We had fun doing it. It was pretty interesting.
Right.
But this week, we wanted to come at you with something a little bit different. So, what our idea was this week was to read you some actual real true crime / paranormal stories.
Yep. True crime paranormal stories that hinge on they have a little element of the paranormal in them, you know.
Yep. So, and actually, we looked up some that I've never heard of before.
Oh, there's a lot of, yeah.
Because there's a lot of them out there, like the Villisca Axe House murder, the Sally House,
The Whaley House.
The Whaley House. You guys have probably, maybe you haven't, maybe you have, but those are ones that you always see on the shows.
Right.
And people talk about them a lot, so.
Plus, like the Stanley Hotel and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them you've probably heard of, but these two that we came across, I've never heard of.
No, I've never heard of any of these.
So, should we get started?
Well, let's take a deep dive and see where it ends. Or see where it lands.
So, our first story
is
going to be read to you from David.
Oh. Gonna get my,
David has got an
incredible
story.
Incredible. All right. So, ghosts in a mass grave. All right. So, every Thanksgiving, the grandfather of twin brothers Frank and Bill Watson told them that some ghost story back in 1909. A man was walking home from Melbourne, Pennsylvania, a.k.a. Melbourne Manor.
Was he walking to Melbourne Manor?
No, but it's in Melbourne, Pennsylvania, where the Melbourne Manor is, but this is something separate from that. Yeah. But anyway, in 1909, a man was walking home in Melbourne, PA, when he saw a pair of dancing ghosts at Duffy's Cut. A pair of dancing ghosts at Duffy's Cut. Stretch of railroad, and Duffy's Cut is what a Duffy's Cut is a stretch of railroad tracks in the woods. The man believed they were among 57 Irish rail workers who supposedly died of cholera outbreak. So in 2002, the Watson brothers start digging the area of Duffy's Cut.
Wasn't his backyard like up to it or something?
Right, he
owned the land.
He owned some part of it, yeah. So, but in 2002, when they got older, they say, "Hey, let's dig around and see if we, if there's any kind of, bones or anything like that, preluding to like, hey, why are there dancing ghosts?" So of course, they start digging.
But was it only dancing ghosts?
Right, but this
claim?
Is what this says.
Okay.
Dancing ghosts. Okay. Why was there dancing ghosts? I guess we'll lead into that. Okay, but remember, at this time, there was a cholera outbreak back then, and many people died. A lot of Irish people, of course, they're building the railways and stuff like that back in the day. Of course, it's all, immigrant labor. But anyway, so he found a mass grave. They're digging around, so there's this huge mass grave, right? Hitting bones, skulls and stuff with their shovels and stuff like that. Clunk, 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 heads were falling. I mean, it was just crazy. It was everywhere. So the motivation behind the possible slings remain unknown. So nobody knows why all these people were murdered in this area.
But it had nothing to do with the cholera outbreak?
I don't know. It just says, the motivation behind the possible slings are unknown. So, he hit the heads.
But did they find out they were murdered? Like, they didn't just, die and,
Well, it was supposed to be a cholera outbreak, but...
Because that could be two things. There could either be a person murdered people and dumped them in a giant grave.
Right.
Or a bunch of people were murdering people.
Or
there was a cholera outbreak and they didn't have anywhere to put the bodies.
And they just dumped them there.
From the hospital or whatever.
Not even probably the hospital. They probably all died and just dumped them there.
Well, I'm just saying, like the crags in the show Salem, where they would dump the bodies.
Right.
So people wouldn't die from illness or...
Well, that is actually interesting because the cholera outbreak back then, there was actually the same thing happened not too far away from us in Elgin, Illinois, where there was a cholera outbreak, and they buried all the bodies where the school now sits. So when they were renovating the school and they were digging down, they started like, I think they were going to build a new gym. So
we can't tell you what school.
We can't tell you what school it is, but we can. It's Channing Elementary School in Elgin, Illinois.
I mean, it's not hard to look up. They don't let you in there. You don't even think you're going to go in.
We tried. We got this close.
We were close, but they pulled the plug because they don't want people in there. They think it's going to frighten the kids and the parents. But all of this, the kids are telling people. Like, it's all coming from kids.
I mean, because if we did go in, say, because they told us, if we did go in there and find stuff, like, we couldn't tell parents because, they could be religious. They don't want your kids going to school there. They would pull them out. I mean, it was just a thing. So
there's a myriad of reasons.
Right. So, but, the claims are, the elevators going up and down by themselves. Janitors they don't keep a night janitor there because the last one ran out screaming and never came back.
But the main point of it is pretty much the cholera outbreak.
Right.
Because that was where the bodies from that cholera outbreak were buried.
Doing full circle back to that, like that is with the bodies and stuff. So it could be from a cholera outbreak where they just buried the bodies or whatever. So that could be that too, and just dumped them there and just, mass grave, just dump them in there because it's 1909. But in Elgin, the same thing happened. It was kids were dying, all that. So they just dumped them in a field, mass grave, and then years later, of course, fast forward 100 years later.
When they were digging up to build the gym, they started finding bodies.
Right. So they had to, of course, stop everything because it could be, Indian, it could be historical. So, of course, everything has to...
Well, you have to stop everything until the professionals come in and take care of that.
And analyze
and look and, research everything that could...
And come to find out, the bodies were mostly children. And they were just stacked. So it was not like it was a typical, burial. They were stacked, 3 high or whatever. They were, on top of each other. So it wasn't like they're in a coffin or everything. There's just bodies on top of each other, just with the, like that.
Morbid.
Back then, that's how they did things.
I mean, it's surprising, though, early 1900s, I would think they would, I don't know. Right. Obviously wrong, but I would think that'd be more of a thing like they do back in the 1600s, 1700s.
I don't know. I mean, back then they didn't really take into account for all the disease and that could come from it and stuff like that. Just burying
plus the hysteria of it.
Have disease and stuff. Yeah.
The hysteria behind it, just to get rid of the bodies in case there's possible contamination and.
Right, but back then they didn't probably really know what all that contamination could be. Because back then they didn't have irrigation water systems and stuff like that. That all of a sudden they're drinking the water and they're like, oh my God, it's a dead body in it. Kind of like the Cecil Hotel.
I just thought of that when they said that for a week. The people that lived there and stayed there were complaining about a funny taste in the water.
Right.
And they had found later on Elisa, I forgot her last name.
Yeah, but
they found a girl in the water heat. Is that what it's called? What is that thing called?
No, it's
the cistern. The cistern.
It's like a water tower on top of
and they found her.
People out there, you probably have seen it. I mean, there's a video of this woman. She's Asian descent.
I think she is from Canada. She was on trip here from Canada with
she's Asian
friends.
Descent, yeah.
And the video footage will show you, she's in the elevator. She's looking out there somebody's chasing her. She's making weird hand gestures.
You can Google it, Cecil Hotel, woman in the tank.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story.
Right. And to this day, nobody knows how. Even the police and investigating have no idea.
They don't know if she killed herself, if she was killed, how she got in there, how the lid was closed once she got in.
Right, because you have to climb up, and then this heavy ass door. You would have to lift up
and pull over you as you're in the
You have to jump
tank.
to try to, because this is solid steel, on top of a freaking high rise, hotel high rise.
So yeah, that story. That's another one of the true crime / paranormal cases.
Right. So if you do want to see that video, you can always YouTube it. The Cecil Hotel video of Elsa, I think her name is Elsa.
Yeah, I can't remember. Elsa,
Elsa, Elsa, I think. But yeah, you see her looking around the corner, like looking in. But then again, she was on medication. So she did take like for psychological things. So she was like bipolar.
No. They said she wasn't. Like they talked to friends in her family, and they said she hadn't been taking her medication.
Oh, she hadn't been taking her medication. So,
that's either way,
paranoia and all that stuff, right? But the whole thing is, there was no video of anybody going up there after her. There was no anything. So she went up all the way up to the top of the roof, climbed all the way up, somehow took the door, this heavy-ass door, and jumped in, closed it, and drowned. And then, of course, they found her because of, like she was saying, that the water started tasting funny.
But I think that she didn't have her clothes on either.
Right. She disrobed and everything and jumped in, supposedly.
But yeah, it's a very interesting story. So if you guys have never heard of it, look it up. Just look
Cecil
up Cecil Hotel. Girl dies in water.
Right. And you'll see the video of her being like, everyone's like, well, what's going on? It seems like she's paranoid. Someone's watching her, following her, but still a mystery to this day.
Who knows?
But anyway.
So the next one we found, I've never, ever heard of, and it's called the Hammersmith Ghost Case. So locals in the Hammersmith area of London, so we're going over the sea now.
Yeah, going over across the water.
Became terrified after a spate of ghost sightings in the winter of 1803. The Hammersmith ghost was said to be tall, terrifying, and clad in white. The stories got so out of hand that armed citizens began patrolling the area, which is always
ghost stories. Okay,
it's never a good idea.
We're looking for ghosts, right? Things you can't kill, right?
But we're
got shotguns, right?
I don't know how that's gonna work, but anyway,
you'll find out.
One night, Francis Smith, who was out on patrol, encountered bricklayer Thomas Millwood, who was dressed in white and mistook him for the ghost.
And what did he do?
Armed with a shotgun, Smith shot and killed Millwood. Charged with homicide, he was eventually sentenced to 1 year's hard labor.
Oh. 1 year hard labor for blowing somebody away in cold blood.
But they hung and lit witches on fire in the 1600s. Right. But we're just 1 year of hard labor for shooting somebody and killing them.
Straight face, shotgun, hard labor.
Following the trial, shoemaker John Graham came forward and admitted to being the real Hammersmith ghost. He had been dressing in a white sheet to scare his apprentice.
Oh, by the way, that was me running around with a sheet on.
Yeah,
True stories.
Number one, don't go patrolling the streets on your own.
Especially for the paranormal with a gun.
I was going to say number two, that's not going to do anything for ghosts or anything paranormal. Maybe if you encounter Bigfoot and he's physical and
maybe a cryptid or something.
Tries to get physical. Right. Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't shoot Bigfoot. I think that's just horrible. But like I said, you can't shoot a ghost. So that was number two, which was dead. And then number three, really 1 year hard labor for shooting and killing a man.
But it was, what, 1800?
Still, 1803. There were prisons.
Funny thing is, it sounds like they're more lenient than they are now. Just give me some hard labor. It was a mistake. You're looking for a ghost, I understand.
That's pretty messed up.
It is.
But yeah, so we decided we'd come to you with a couple little stories there and see if you guys like that segment. If you do, leave us a comment and let us know. Like and subscribe to the channel.
Maybe we'll
come back with some more true crime paranormal
stories that are true, but also related to the paranormal in nature as well.
Yep. And there's some really good ones too.
Yeah, and there's some ones that are just like, didn't see that twist.
That you'd be like,
Very plausible.
Exactly. So on that note, guys.
Very unfabricated.
Next week, we will probably be coming to you with a more educational video having to do with paranormal equipment.
The pluses and minuses and how to use certain equipment that give you false readings and things like that nature.
And if you're going to use these pieces of equipment, don't use it as proof of the paranormal. We need literal video proof. We need audio proof. And if that stuff isn't coinciding with it, even when it does, you have to call it into question.
Right.
But
could be a coincidence.
There's just certain things, you love to use them, you love to experiment with them. But there's some things with them that you can't trust.
Right.
And you don't want to fool yourself.
Because, I mean, frequencies are frequencies. So even keying up walkie-talkies, your cell phone, anything like that will elicit,
I mean, we know to put it
positives.
on airplane mode because everybody will be like, well, why don't you just put it on airplane mode? It helps to a degree because we are surrounded right now by EMF. It's everywhere.
Lights,
so,
refrigerator, you name it, gives off an EMF.
A good example would be when we did Blood's Point. If you saw that video, it's a few back. But we were in the middle of nowhere, but there was a house right next to the graveyard.
So who knows?
And there
was poles with
cell towers. There's still people that are driving by.
People driving by.
So you can't really. That's why we even put in that video, even though we were getting K2 spikes, which the K2 will be discussing in the next episode.
Right.
We don't count that as proof.
Right.
It's interesting, but it's just that.
All the stuff you see on TV that that go on and off. That's just for visual, for you to
be skeptical of it.
Be 100% skeptical of it.
Because, like I said, there could be moments where you could be getting something, but
with the amount of things that could trigger it,
you have to know what's around you at all times and what's just naturally around you no matter what. So, we'll be back next week and we'll be talking about equipment. So, stay tuned for that one and we'll catch you later.
Right.
Peace out.
Later, y'all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.